I'm a big fan of Patrice O'Neal. Rest in peace, the GOAT.
One
The
of the
great,
guys. That's
come
one
on,
of the
come on,
guys.
come
That's
on.
one of the
Patrice
guys.
O'Neal, and he said it's hard to get a woman, but easy to keep her. It's easy to get a man, but it's hard to keep him. He basically goes on to say a relationship will only work if the woman feels like the man's better than her.
Welcome back to the channel. I've been helping singles since 2020 find their forever partner. And with that in mind, let's get into it. So this video was sent to me by Humble Dad, and he wanted to know kind of how I felt about it. And if you don't know Humble Dad, me and him, did a little bit of a collab, a couple of weeks ago. And it was great, to get his perspective on a lot of, the issues that I talk about. And I've been trying to do more collabs recently, just simply because I want to get, again, more opinions in this space. I definitely lean more towards women because since I am a man, I think I can speak for probably a good portion of men. But I do think, I do try to keep it, like I say, balanced, try to find people out there that are talking about it, especially if they lean themselves toward marriage and really are trying to encourage marriage, because as you see on the screen, that is what I am about. Now, what was really interesting about this was, I think this is kind of a truism. You can't necessarily find this in the Bible per se, but it is something that I think a lot of us actually go through and kind of experience, again, to a degree. And I like kind of how they're saying it, because I think this is actually one of the problems when it comes to a lot of women, when it comes to them dating. Like, it should be difficult, honestly, for a lot of men to get access to women. That actually should be there. I think it's something that, God has put in place within women, within their subconscious, so that they can kind of push away a lot of men. I think the issue is not necessarily that that energy exists. I think the problem is that it's being programmed incorrectly. And so everybody can be programmed. All right. We love to talk about all these, different types of things in our society. Like, we love to use the word brainwashed, right? And I'm sure all of you understand exactly what that means. But the truth is, we've all been brainwashed. Every single person all throughout the entire world has been brainwashed. In fact, I was watching this particular video recently about somebody that was, I think they were from China. And they were saying that they had come to the United States for the very first time. And the media over there and a lot of the things that, they had, spent their time growing up, they found that the United States was very different, from what they had been told. In fact, I've heard the same thing from a lot of Africans, because a lot of Africans, believe it or not, they've kind of been told to not always deal with African Americans, that African Americans have certain issues. Now, don't get mad, black people. We have certain reputations around the world, right? And, a lot of Africans, were kind of told, okay, don't deal with them. They have issues, blah, blah, blah. But then they get over here and they find out, no, not all of these African Americans, i.e. black people, are really bad. It's the same thing for a lot of black people. They really think everybody in Africa is walking around, not half dressed and all this other kind of stuff. And they don't recognize that there's real cities over there, real cities. Okay. And people aren't always looking, dodging a bullet. You actually have a lot of safe cities, and commerce and different things like that in parts of Africa. But see, the media loves to show what is the most dramatic, right? It loves to do that. And so what it's doing by doing that is it's programming you. It's making you believe that the safest place in the world is America, that the best people in the world are Americans, right? And that no other country really has it going on. And like, I was watching another Instagram and it was talking about how most of the major cities in China blow away America. It's like the technology, how they've been built up, what they're doing. It's like they are literally living in the quote unquote future, the future that most Americans actually thought about and put in movies, 30 years ago. Well, the Chinese have created it. And so it's so interesting because we don't see that on our news. We don't see that in all of the media that we receive. But as the world becomes a lot more, smaller, through social media and different things like that, we have the opportunity to get a glimpse into other people's lives. And as we get that glimpse, we start to see, oh, wow, I've been brainwashed. People have actually told me a narrative that wasn't true. And now that I'm seeing it, I have to take the moment to rethink. But as crazy as it sounds, it's very difficult for most people to rethink. In fact, that was one of the things that Paul talked about when he talked about renewing of the mind. Because that is one of the most difficult things, for a human to do. It is. Because we're programmed a certain way, our fears are set up a certain way, our belief systems are set up a certain way, our goals, everything is set up generally for a certain thing. Something we've been told, something we've been encouraged to do. And so now at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, we find out, oh, wow, the world doesn't work this way. It actually works another way. And so the most difficult thing at that point is to turn around and to go in the opposite direction or to go in a slightly different direction. And when we start to talk seriously about dating, in relationships, in marriage, that really is the problem. Like in my own dating life, what's very interesting is just like this gentleman says, it is so difficult, to get a woman to pay attention. If I don't line up with whatever is in her head and what she thinks a man is supposed to act like, within the first 2 seconds of me meeting her all the way, sometimes maybe all the way up until the first date, because anytime within that realm of time, is like a danger zone. And if I make any mistakes in that danger zone, I'm not going to get the date. And what's interesting is I've even heard of a lot of quote unquote dating coaches encourage men not to even communicate during that time, but to basically get the woman's number, say, hey, let's go on a date. Maybe 2 days before the date, reach out to her, say, hey, we still on for Friday night. We still on for Saturday night. Cool. Maybe talk to her, a text the day of the date and then get to the date. Because I think those men have recognized that it's very difficult in that time period, in order to secure the woman. Because the woman has all of her doubts at that place. She has all, everything that is within her is basically pushing men away. It's saying, okay, I have to be safe. These men are out here crazy. So her brain is leaning towards her brainwashing. And I don't say this in a bad way, ladies, but, because like I said, we've all been brainwashed, but it's going towards her programming. It's going towards these things that she thinks are right. But if she's never picked good men in the past, she really can't trust her programming, if this makes sense. So what's happening is now, she's trying to lean into that, trying to get rid of the bad eggs, so to speak. And then she gets to the date. And if the date goes halfway decent, half of that energy comes off. Then she gets to a second date. About, another quarter of that worry comes off. But then she gets to the third date. And by the time she gets through the third date, she's like, oh, I'm good. This is a decent guy. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And she kind of settles in. So all of that push was in those first 2-3 dates, or maybe the first 2 weeks, but it's just in that first entry time to the woman. Like some women will warm up very quickly within, honestly, 1 or 2 days. And then some women, it might take them 2 or 3 weeks, depending upon, like I say, their temperament, their personality, and just kind of what's going on with them, right? But they spend all this time, pushing the man away. But then, like I say, once he's in, he could turn into the biggest jerk in the world. And you hear women talk about this when they talk about the men having a representative. Because a lot of men understand this game. They understand the way women work. And a lot of women need to understand that while society says that men are simple and that women are complex, the men that understand women understand that women are just as simple. All you have to do is do a song and dance within the first 2 or 3 weeks and you have access. And the problem is for most women, once a man has access, she likes to stay there. She kind of makes her home in that energy, and she sits there. And she'll sit there and even sometimes marry men, okay, that really aren't good men. And then social media and all of us out here, influencers and stuff like that are talking about it like, and we're saying, why women, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? But it's like, that's just kind of how women work. All right. And that's why everybody's trying to tell women, slow down. Don't make this decision in 2 days. Make it in 90 days. Almost everybody tells women 90 days, 90 days, 90 days. But even in my own experience, I've never seen a woman make it to 90 days. In fact, I rarely see them make it to 2 weeks. Because if you're a man and you're standing in what you stand in, and then she meets you and she's already accepted what you stand in, at that point, all of her inhibitions and worries and concerns go away and she settles on in. And like I've told you, I've had women like ready to move in with me within 2 weeks. It was amazing. It's like, you're trusting me with your life within 2 weeks of knowing me. And see, here's the difference. Again, back to what the gentleman was saying, which goes back to Patrice O'Neal. Men work opposite. We don't work that way. Women, it's easy for you to get access to us. Easy, extremely easy. Most men will talk to almost any woman that is moving. Almost any. Kevin Samuels would talk about the 1 out of 10 scale. All right. And I know some people have problems with it, but it's a really good way to measure. And men are very logical, so we like measurements. But a woman that is a 4 can talk to any man up and down the spectrum. Okay, when I say talk to here, I'm just talking about more of a conversation. If a woman with 4 energy runs into a man that is a 10 out of 10 for most women's, what they would think is a 10 out of 10, she basically can talk to him. Now, that doesn't mean that he is going to be a nice guy. It doesn't mean that he is going to get her phone number, but it means she does have access. So if a woman that is a 4 is in the grocery store and she looks over and she sees a 10 out of 10 guy and she says, hey, can you get that, jelly off the top shelf for me? I can't reach it. Most men that were trained halfway decent, they have a decent personality, okay, will actually reach up, grab the jar, and give it to her. And if she asks him a question about 1 or 2 things after that, most men, like I said, in that spectrum, will actually talk to the woman for a few seconds. However, in the same scenario, women will not talk. A man can literally say hello to a woman and she will ignore him, 100% ignore him, and will continue to walk down through the grocery store. Down the grocery store aisle. That's huge. A woman that is a 4 has access to a 10. But a man that could be an 8 and he's right next to a woman that's an 8, she will not give him access. She won't even talk to him many times, right? So let's take this even further. So let's say, for instance, the woman is decently attractive and the man is single. Okay. So now in this scenario, the woman talks to the man, gets the jelly or whatever it is. They have a conversation. Okay. So the man thinks, oh, okay, well, I'll go ahead and get, her contact information. Or maybe the woman says, oh, do you have an Instagram? Or do you have this? Do you have that? So she's trying to make sure she can have contact. Afterwards, if the man is even halfway interested in her, he'll, continue. And that's what we call pursue. At that point, he starts to pursue. I don't really say it like that. I just say he makes the first move and actually, gets that, ball rolling. So at that point, he's in conversation. She has access to him. She has access. Access was easy. It wasn't hard at all. And the reason why women think it's hard is because they're looking from their perspective. From their perspective, it's very difficult for a man to get to them. But it's actually easy for a woman to get to a man. That's extremely easy. So now she is trying, she's going back and forth, going back and forth. And this is when a lot of women get extremely afraid. Because now the door is open. And this is the time where you should be afraid. Because it's very difficult for a woman to go from day 1 to day 365, okay? Because that's what we talk about, for if you're really looking to get married and trying to get a proposal and stuff like that. It should start to turn somewhere between 9 months to maybe 15 months, especially if you're over 28 as a woman, right? You don't want to waste 2 years of your time with a guy's not interested in you. So, and see, that becomes a problem. So now from day 1 to day 365, it is extremely difficult to get a man to marry you. Extremely difficult. Because at that point, he's evaluating you. See, men don't evaluate you in the first 5 seconds or the first 2 weeks or the first 3 weeks. We evaluate you over the course of the relationship. And if we see major problems, we drop you. And not only do we drop you, I'll be honest, a good portion of men are going to put you in a holding pattern. Okay, that's what we call placeholder. So they're putting you in a holding pattern, still talking to you, still going out with you, still doing whatever they, or want to do with you. But now he just doesn't have as much time for you anymore. So now when you used to have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to hang out with him, now you only get Saturday and Sunday. And he's using Friday to go out and find him a replacement for you. And then one day you pop up and you find out he doesn't want to talk to you anymore, or you just find out he was cheating on you or whatever you feel. And so now you're upset, but he's moved on and he's really not upset because he already has a better woman. And then a lot of women get upset about that and they get frustrated. But what's interesting about this is, like I say, men and women are doing the same thing, but they're doing it in opposite ways, slightly varying ways. See, a woman, if her programming is correct, everything will work out fine. And for many women, their programming was good because, like I say, they got married. They were married in their 20s. They're still married now. And that is the key. For a woman, if she thinks it through, and that's why I'm always telling women that are in their 20s, if you're watching this channel, you really need to pay attention to a lot of the things that I'm talking about. In your programming of looking for men, what is your number one factor of looking for them? See, the non-negotiables will come up on the screen. And as a woman, those should be your number one things. If you notice on there, it doesn't say beauty. Beauty goes with women. That means that's the number one thing men are looking for. But as a woman, beautiful men or pretty men or handsome men should not be your number one thing. Like I've talked about the fact that almost everybody is decently attractive. Okay, it's just some of us, just have a little bit more glam or a little bit more grooming that makes us look better, right? And one of the things that I find that really gets a lot of women, especially black women, is that they lean into their masculine side, which basically is saying, I want him to look good. I want him to dress well. And see, that goes with women. That's what men are looking for in women. All right. But see, women around the world, black women, that's not their number one thing. Their number one thing is provision and protection. That is the biggest thing for them. And I've tried to explain this to you all before. If you take the average American man, and you'll see this in a lot of videos, if you really see a lot of the people that are expats, and a lot of more people are leaving and moving around the world, and a lot of black men are actually moving around the world as well. But I don't want black women to be upset about this. What I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to what's really happening. When a black man moves overseas, most places overseas, the dollar goes further. So if a black man has a job where he can literally work it from overseas, or he can work 6 months in America and then have 6 months off because that job allows him to do that, then he's put in a position where when he goes overseas, his money multiplies. So in America, he might be making $50,000 a year, but overseas, it could be worth $150,000 to $200,000 a year. And so now women that in those countries might have been 8s, 9s, and 10s, and, will now see him as a really great option. Where in America, a woman that's an 8 or 9 or 10 doesn't pay him any attention. Is this starting to make sense? Because the women here, they're looking for the attractiveness. They're looking for this, they're looking for that, and the third. But a lot of women overseas have been taught, find the key elements first. Can he protect you? Can he provide for you? Can he lead you? And an ugly man might be able to do those things for you. A man that's a little bit shorter might be able to do those things for you. A man that goes against the romantic narrative might be able to do those things for you. And see, I'm not telling women here to not want an attractive man or not want a good man and all this other kind of stuff. I'm not saying that, ladies, so don't get too upset. What I'm trying to get you all to do is to focus in on the core elements. Focus in on what's really important first. Then look for everything. See, when a woman, a lot of black women, I kind of hate to keep using that term because I know white women and Latino women, Asian women can get caught up in this too. It's really more of an American thing, but it definitely affects the black community more. When a woman makes a decision about a man in 5 seconds of seeing him, okay, and a lot of women admit that they do this, the only thing that they're making a decision about is his attractiveness. That's it. In 5 seconds, you can't do anything else. And that's the part I'm trying to get you to get away from. Since the very beginning of the channel, I've always tried to encourage women to talk to men for 15 minutes. Even if you can't talk to the man a lot at that point, you can actually just give him your Instagram or your TikTok or whatever. And then at that point, he can communicate to you, through there if you don't want to give him a phone number. And I've also encouraged women to actually get a second phone number, so that men can talk to you there. And you can always drop that phone number and get another phone number if you feel like the man is, overly polluting, that temporary number. But it's through that you get to open yourself up to a 15-minute to an hour conversation. And that way you can kind of extend that time and you start to look for, can he protect, provide, and lead? If a man cannot protect, provide, and lead, what are you talking to him for? I did my first story time, and I've said, hey, if you guys want to do, more story times, reach out to me. Like I said, my contact information is right there on the screen. Instagram is the best way to contact me, but you can also contact me through TikTok. And one of the things that I found, interesting about that story time is, again, a lot of the stuff that I preach about on this channel, and the woman is a really sweet lady. I kind of hated that some people kind of beat her up in the comments, but it is what it is. But, it's 2 things major that I felt like, she made a mistake in. And one of them was, I definitely think she attached herself to him, this particular guy, way too quick. But again, that's what we're talking about. A lot of women attach way too quickly. Instead of taking 90 days, all right, to really evaluate the man, she's evaluating him in 1 or 2 days. And then the second one was she gave him money. You don't give men money. You don't do it. If he's your fiance and y'all about to move into a house and he needs an extra $1,000 to put as a down payment, oh yeah, give him the money. If he's trying to put furniture in the house, I could say as a fiance, yeah, give him the money. But until you all are literally like locked in and you are, walked down that aisle, ladies, that's when your money is your money, right? Now, once you're married, all the money is the same. But until then, your money is your money and you do not need to be giving a man any money. What does this say with the non-negotiables? the non-negotiable says he is the provider. He is, not you. He is. And see, this is why, like I say, you all make these mistakes. You get mad. But see, your programming is basically trying to teach you, okay, to get the romantic guy. But the romantic guy, like I say, the tall, dark, and handsome dude, that is not always, not saying that those guys are bad, but that's not always the best if he cannot do the other three things. And you can find out whether or not he can do those three things in 3 dates. And you don't even have to ask him the question. You can see how he operates. All right? But even after that, I'm telling you, take 90 days and really evaluate. And I've told everyone, write it down. Write it down. Ladies, you will have a vision board. I know a lot of y'all have vision boards where y'all will spend hours cutting out pictures, coming up with all this information to post on this big board in your house about saying all the things that you want. And then what I'm saying is every time you have a conversation with a guy or go out with a guy, take 5 minutes and write down the key points if anything stood out to you so that you can recall that information later. Take notes. It's the same thing. That your husband is the most important decision that you can make in your life after following Jesus. Okay, so your husband is extremely important. Everything on your vision board goes back to the man that you're going to marry. And it's the same thing for men. Keep notes. All right? But see, more men will keep notes, whether they're mental or whether they're direct. Okay? And most men will give it time. Now, a lot of men these days, for the fellas, are trying to talk about just being real guys, about keeping, not having sex, basically about not having sex. I thought about a million other ways to say it, but, not having sex. And so I know that's very difficult for a lot of men, especially when you get access. And a lot of women will give you access. Just like I said, they'll give you access early. But I'm encouraging you, don't do it. Okay? And the main reason why you don't want to do it is because in the beginning, you don't know this woman. You don't know what she's been through. You don't know her traumas. You don't know her problems. And most importantly, you don't know if she's pregnant. One of the key elements that a lot of women do to get their way is they claim pregnancy that ain't yours. And if you just met her, you don't know what she's done. Okay? And trust me, if she gives it up to you in the first 2 weeks, she's giving it up to another dude in the first 2 weeks. She's done this before. You're not special. I know you might feel special, but you're not. So your best way to start the evaluation process is to give it at least a month, but I'm always saying 3 months. I say 3 months for both men and women. And then after that 3 months, if she ends up talking about she's pregnant, doggone well that ain't yours. Doggone well. Okay, because babies take 9 to 10 months to bake. Well, if that baby pops out after 9 months, but you ain't had sex for her for the first 3, and that baby come out fully formed, okay, at 9 months, you're like, oh no, I know this ain't mine. I ain't signing no birth certificate. Because I know doggone well, we can go ahead and take the DNA test right now. Because doggone well, that ain't your baby. And see, y'all have to think bigger because these women are out here and they're trying to hurt you. Okay? And you have to think about it from the perspective of how it's going to bless you. Right? So yes, ladies, you all can get access easy. But the problem is, can you close the deal? And that is why men are always saying, it doesn't matter how many men you've dated. It doesn't matter that you've dated a millionaire. It doesn't matter if you dated a pro athlete. It doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. The only thing that matters is if he will marry you. Because men make up their decisions over long periods of time. And a man will waste your time, and he does not care. Honestly, from a man's perspective, he really doesn't care about wasting your time. And that's why if you're smart as a woman, you will take notes, in those first 90 days, okay, and I would even tell you to be exclusive with him in the first, 30 days. Try to tell him you don't want to kiss or anything like that. And that allows you to continue to date, during that time. So you can date multiple people if you start to feel like, this guy's not working out. But you need to evaluate, can he follow the non-negotiables? And it's the same thing for the guys. You need to find out whether or not the woman can follow the non-negotiables. I had a big video recently, and I was talking about nurturing energy. And again, everybody's going to look at that slightly differently. But if you really pay attention to the non-negotiables, you can kind of get a little bit of that through the non-negotiables. So for a lot of the men, you do need to be looking at this woman beyond her being attractive. And if this is the most attractive woman you've ever dated, you might find yourself getting caught up and you'll start to slide into your feminine instead of staying in your masculine. And when you stay in your masculine, you recognize her beauty is just part of the package. She should know how to keep her beauty up. She should desire to give her beauty to you in multiple different ways. So this is not something you should have to chase. It is just something that is a perk, of being with a woman that's walking in her feminine. And there are men that get caught up in the beauty. They get caught up, even when you start to look at a lot of the passport bros. A lot of the passport bro information is trying to show the most beautiful women. But I'll be honest, when I have looked at a lot of the people that have been successful, it's not so much that they went overseas and found these 8, 9s, and 10 women. They really went overseas and found 7s and 7.5s and 8s and maybe a 6.5. They found those women, and those were really the women that they married. Because, see, those women were humble. Those women were kind. Those women were sweet. But see, the women over there, they're the 8s, 9s, and 10s. Yeah, you get access to them. But see, they're going to try to use you in a different way, especially if they're out in the streets like that. A city girl overseas and a city girl in America is the same personality. And that's another thing that I've constantly been trying to tell y'all. That's why I talk so much about personality, is because you guys get caught up in that. And then y'all will go overseas. And if you can't recognize a good woman in America, you're not going to recognize a good woman overseas. And then that's when those women use you. And again, you can look through a lot of the Google videos, some of the things with the passport bros, some of the things with the men that are actually living overseas. And many of them will tell you, do not talk to the women in the club. Do not talk to a woman unless she has a 9-to-5 job. They're like, that's the woman you talk to. She has to have a 9-to-5 job. She does not like to go to the club. Okay, that's the woman you talk to. But again, the same thing, those women exist here. So that's the point I want to make sure I say to the men, because I don't want all these men running overseas and then running into the same traps, that got them caught, in America. Anyway, remember, every other Thursday, we do Thursday Talks. That's when you guys can come out and y'all can say how much y'all hated this video or how much y'all love this video, or you can talk about certain things that's going on in your life, because I want to hear from you. That's another reason why I do all the collabs, because again, I don't want it to just be about me. So anyway, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.